I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 25.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item on topics of discussion is our annual financial report. Mike, Bill, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. We come bearing good news. It's a very good report. It's refreshing to be able to report good news to you. And I say in the context of intra-county matters. But when Bob and I came on board, preceding me by a bit, Al mentioned that this was a priority for him to get this public document in easy to understand format to represent transparency for Cumberland County finances, and we did that, and we're very pleased and proud. Bill was at the forefront of that back in the day when we first issued. Cumberland County's got an award for it each and every year since. This is in for an award as well. With that, I'll let Bill start. Bill's going to talk about the first half generally, and then I'll pick up the second half.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to speak on the PAFR. It's something our office is proud of. But largely, we can't do it ourselves. We like to extend thanks to the Visitor Bureau, Tammy Shear, Rachel Bryson, for the photos Lisa Weaver in our office puts together to cover, along with finance giving us information on taxes, and later on the report. But after the CAFR's done, Mike and I get together and brainstorm what we want to do, what we want to present. Page one in the document typically is a letter from Al addressing the readers, just letting them know where we're getting our information from our CAFR. And this document is a lot easier to read than our CAFR. And it's a welcome. This page two is a welcome statement. Just generally give you an idea of what Cumberland County is like geographically, as far as if you're not in the area, what to expect if you came here. And the table of contents on there also gives you a glimpse of what's to come. Page 3 and 4 makes you familiar with the elected officials in our county and what a pathonetary does. If you're not from the area, you may not know. So it gives you contact information of the elected officials, along with a brief description of some statistics that happens in that office. Page 4 and 5, we start getting into some demographics and the working environment. On page 5, Cumberland County is at we have the highest percentage growth rate in the state, with 250,000 people. Our median household income is also at the top, and we're in comparison with our other local counties, along with the state average. Page 5 or 6, we go on to economic conditions, and in each one of these graphs, green bar represents Cumberland County, but it shows we're at a steady 3.5, the same level we were last year for unemployment rate. But although we have a lot of people coming into our county, and with our population growing, our commute to work is the shortest in the region. And I think one of the reasons is, although we're the third highest as far as housing values go, our housing is in demand, but it's also affordable.
Bill, I'm sorry, the median home price, that is higher than the previous year, correct?
Yes.
It's like 187.
187.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right, and like Adams County was the lowest. There may have been some large real estate transactions, and statistics sometimes don't show you a true consistent picture, but I believe you're right. Flipping over to the financial section, page 7 and 8 is on full accrual. It lists all the receivables which the county is likely to collect, along with all our liabilities. Unlike a budget, which may show you some current, or the current resources which may be expended or received. So the liabilities include all the debt, all the pension, all the OPEB that the county's to see in the future, to give you an idea of the full economic health of the county. And it is in good condition, like Michael said, with our net position on the page of bottom 7 increasing gradually over the last 3 years. Page 8 gives you an idea of the revenues and expenses in comparison form between 17 and through 15. And it does show that we hold steady on our expenses, and it's a good indicator that we're structurally sound. And the bottom of page 8 gives you a breakdown of how those expenses are divvied up between the different services that the county has. Page 9 is a major initiative page. It's hard to summarize everything that happens in the county into 4 different items, but we tried to find what we thought were important to present. We mentioned that the 7th judge is slated to be in position in 2020, and the county's taking steps to prepare for that. It identifies the impact of the opioid epidemic on our most vulnerable in society, to the children and youth department. We mentioned the nursing home achieving high marks for its care that it provides, along with the commemoration of the public services building in Dennis Meredith's name. And lastly, the section that I'm presenting on is the your money at work, and we have the tax dollar and how it's broken up into where each of your tax dollar goes to. 75% on average goes to the school district, 14 to Cumberland County, 10 cents is to local municipalities, and 1 cent to the library system. The bottom graph on page 10 is represents your per resident spending schedule. It's an analytical look at the general fund and shows how much each resident spends for a general fund department service. Net that department's revenue. It takes each general fund department or operating expenditures and offsets it with its own revenue, and the remaining figures divided by the population of the county. It takes into consideration subsidy paid for other county programs out of the general fund, such as the human services realm, and it calculates its impact. And it does compare from year to year as well. Now that I presented the first part of the paper, I'll hand it over to Michael to talk more about the meat and bones of the comparisons.
Yeah, I find it very interesting to compare Cumberland County to our neighbors in South Central PA. And the remainder of the PAFR, for the most part, is doing that. I look at the metrics within the big measures, within the financials, and I try to think on how to present them either in dollar terms, percentage, or what have you, that would be the most intuitively understandable to the residents. Picked a number of categories. These are for the most part recurring, although I have a kind of a new page, and I'll explain why as we get into it. But we start out on page 11 with county post-employment benefit costs per resident. And there are 3 counties, of which Cumberland is one, that offer non-pension benefits to employees once they retire, costing only about $1 or less on average on a per capita basis. The other 3 counties in South Central, and Lebanon, I couldn't actually get statistics for this, so that's why they're left out. Lancaster, Dauphin, and York cost, as you can see, substantially more, principally because of the much higher OPEB benefit. There's an indicator of kind of scale. Cumberland County's unfunded actuarial accrued liability in terms of OPEB, which is just healthcare, not life insurance, And of course, our offering to employees are once you retire, if you're a member of the pension plan, you can participate if you pay full freight. If you have to pay the premium. The county doesn't contribute. Yet there is an implied subsidy in that, mathematically. Franklin County, let's jump to Lancaster. Lancaster County offers substantial benefits to its employees, and I think to understand our strong financial position, it's good to understand, kind of what we're not doing that are costing others quite a bit at times. Lancaster County offers its employees who are employed, which is 5 years of employment, lifetime health care, post-employment, up, if you were employed prior to 2012, beginning in 2012, the 5-year eligibility criteria extended to 25, it's up to 25 years, and then you get lifetime health care. Very substantial. Of course, many employees were employed beginning in 2011 earlier, so that's why their OPEB liability, of which in Cumberland County is about $1 million, 1.2. In Lancaster, that's $81 million for them so far, and growing, as they're not funding it. Their pension, Lancaster's pension costs, you notice they're kind of an anomaly as a relatively low cost in terms of their pension, but I believe that is because they do not have a nursing. So you take out the nursing home contingent at the other counties, and that would probably make us all rather comparable. But since Lancaster doesn't have a nursing home, their cost for the pension contribution average out lower. Dauphin County, their OPEB, Dauphin County provides health and life insurance benefits for eligible retirees under the terms of agreements with unions that represent them. Is the way their financials read, and then York County offers similar benefits to Lancaster. So that explains a lot of the variation on post-employment benefits costs in this region. On page 12, I look at real estate taxes, both in terms of the percent they fund overall county operations, programming, and activities, and then below the burden of that on a per resident basis. The graph at the top of page 12, which is the share real estate taxes that fund county programs and activities. It's an important measure. The ongoing pressure at counties, as you probably well know, is for a high level of programming paid for with county real estate taxes. A low percent takes discipline and hustle and a willingness to say judiciously at times. Credit Cumberland County for our history of economical decision making that allows us to maintain our standing on this measure. I consider on the flip side, I think is an interesting point to mention, I'd like to, is the flip side, you can look at other revenue sources, other revenue categories, but I found them, what percentage programming did they fund? But I noticed that correlates and is all driven by the level that real estate taxes are set. So if you set your real estate taxes low, as Cumberland County has as an objective and something it maintains, then your other percentages compare higher to other counties. If you're similar, high tax counties such as say Dauphin County, then your percentages are relatively lower. So it's kind of an independent, dependent variable situation. So I think those have to be looked at separately. So that's why I didn't present those percentages. County real estate, the bottom of page 12, county real estate tax burden comparison. I think this is rather intuitive. Cumberland County shines on this measure, $207 on average per resident. The average burden on that measure with Dauphin County being approximately 2 times Cumberland's and York's, approximately 50% higher than Cumberland's. Lancaster compares fairly well with Cumberland on many measures I'd like to point on to the next page, the top of page 13, general fund spending per resident. First off, what struck me looking at this chart, if you flip back and compare the chart at the top of page 13 to the chart at the bottom of page 12, you'll see that the counties are ordered similarly, almost identically, and in the same relative magnitude. So that correlation there tells us, it indicates that your general fund spending drives your taxes. So, where go your general fund dollars, you're going to need to pull it from your tax base. I thought that was interesting how closely that aligned. New this year is the chart at the bottom of 13, 911 call center operating expenditures per resident. I went into financials and pulled out 911 call center operating expenditures. This graph compares the cost on a per resident basis to operate each county's 911 call center. Capital spending is excluded, as capital spending differs significantly year to year, both within and between counties, and so it's difficult to incorporate into such an annual comparison. Cumberland and Lancaster.
Just operational.
Just operating expenses, no capital, which is substantial, but because of the wide fluctuation, those few numbers make them non-comparable. So Cumberland and Lancaster counties compare very favorably, as is clear to the other counties in this region, and the cost to provide this core county service that touches most residents at a point, if not often. Page, Al, can I ask you to Page 14 looks at what's termed corrections in the GFOA. Bill and I, thanks to Al's direction and support, got on the committee to write quite a number of years ago, the county financial statements, regulatory report. And one of the things we did, one of our accomplishments, was to add corrections in, because corrections is a substantial user of county tax dollars. Typically, it had been previously reported with either judicial or public safety, which is an argument for, but because it's so substantial in and of itself, we wanted it broken out for comparability, in part for to benchmark against other counties. So we put that in there. Lo and behold, a lot of counties don't follow the instructions. We actually wrote the instructions in as to what to include. So we had to dig down for the prison cost and both the adult probation cost, but we're able to get that. And what we're able to come up with is Cumberland County's cost to house an inmate for 1 year is $31,098 using the prison budgets. Lebanon and York counties are low-cost operations. Interestingly, Lebanon County has 500 or so average inmates per year. This was a county with between 3 and 4, even 3 or 4 Lebanon counties in Cumberland County. So they have quite a high prison population for this small county. York is well known, has a very large prison population as well. I suggest those are both reasons that their average cost is so low. Lancaster County, if you go through the media articles in Lancaster County, you see they had quite a number of issues with their prison. So although they cost $26,000, there seems to be a cost there in terms of assaults and certainly transparency. It's actually difficult getting information on Lancaster County's prison for this analysis. I had to reach out to some folks over there. So Cumberland, all said, Cumberland County compares fairly well with the 31, given its, I'll say, clean record of operating their probation supervision. Again, lack of transparency in some counties, the counties that do report statistics to the Commonwealth PCCD, I was able to utilize, again, through a process of reaching out to various counties in addition to utilizing the denominator information, which is the number of active cases in from those that report, which are York, Franklin, Dauphin, and of course Cumberland, and come up with the statistics. But all told, this page represents what's termed as corrections by the GFOA. And as you can see, why are we reporting, why did I decide to report these two graphs on page 14? You can see from what the handout Al just handed you is corrections is the single biggest user of general tax dollars in 2017 and 16 as well, of all of the county's programming and activities, utilizing in 17, $15,715,099 as a net cost, all funded with local real estate taxes. So I thought that deserved some breakdown and some statistics to put in context as far as cost effectiveness measures. So that's why I added page 14 this year. I hope you find that useful. And then beginning on page 15, you'll see these stripes, which I think are fairly self-explanatory at this point. We've had these in for many years. Full-time employees per 1,000 residents at the top of page 15. Again, Lancaster is the low with 3.1 employees per 1,000 residents. But again, if you recall, I mentioned Lancaster does not have a nursing home. So you take out the other counties' nursing home operations, contingent of employees, and that will pull everybody kind of closer to where Lancaster is. Whether they be below or a little above, we're not sure, but that explains Lancaster's low number. And Cumberland County compares favorably at 4.2 of those with nursing homes. You can see financial stability, the graph below, number of days reserves in general fund balance. We have substantial reserves there that contributes mightily to our AAA credit rating and security and ability to weather financial downtimes, with the ups and downs at various points with the state and so forth. That puts us in good stead. Share of county debt per resident, Cumberland County compares very favorably at $157 per county resident. That's notable. We also, I got to commend you on your borrowing policy as well, and data. And then the graphs on page 17, just to give further graphical presentation of fund balance, restricted, unrestricted, and then we get into the award on 18. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? You don't have to ask them now. Happy to take questions at any point further.
I just wanted an observation, and this is excellent. It's a snapshot, and it has a lot of very understandable information for general populace. When we look at your page 14, which I think you said is new, Mike, this year,
Yes.
dealing with the cost to the county for our prison and for aid, and then the cost for adult supervision.
For supervisor.
Yeah, for adult probation. And I notice on that our expense compared to the other counties for adult probation is significantly higher. Now, the commentary that's made here is that it's cheaper to have folks on active supervision, I guess, than it is to have them incarcerated. But I guess my question is there a way that you can analyze that versus our overall corrections costs. In other words, are we being successful in what we're doing with respect to adult probation? Is there any way that you can analyze that? Because we are spending like twice as much as York County on adult probation.
Yeah, that's of course a very, very good question, but involves a lot broader measures than what I have the ability to look at. Outcomes I would suggest, of course, are core and central to that. Whatever answer is the right answer to that. This is only looking at simply cost effectiveness of that. So if we go that route, if we place an individual in active supervision, this looks at the cost of that decision. Of course, everybody knows it costs a lot to feed and house somebody for a year. Prison is always one of the more costly.
Well, I know we've been focused on alternative sentencing, and trying to essentially, if you're a nonviolent offender, saying whether they could serve their sentence, not necessarily behind bars. So I know that's been one of our focuses, and I guess I don't know whether it's fair to make the comparison, but just does that mean that like York County is doing less of that? People behind bars? That's what I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say what I can say.
You do a comparison.
I'll say what I can say. And the limited statistics that I'm looking at are that of third-class counties, and what contributes to the graph at the bottom of 14, the wide divergence in cost is the much lower caseload for active supervision. Why that is that appropriate and outcomes? I can't speak on that at all. But I know in Cumberland County, the latest statistics for a report that was released within the past couple of weeks is Cumberland County has on average active caseload per adult probation officer of 32, and that's less than half of the next lowest Class 3 county, Dauphin County, which has an average active caseload of 65. And actually, there's only 2 other counties in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with a lower active caseload of supervision. They're Sullivan County and Pike County.
So the caseload essentially of our adult probation
Adult
is
probation
relatively
is
low
active supervision.
is low compared to other counties.
It's extraordinarily low, and that explains why Cumberland County's average cost is so much higher than the other counties. Not just in this region, but throughout the state. But as far as outcomes and overall effectiveness, I would take a variety of.
When you consider, and I think you mentioned, Cumberland County continues to have its own nursing home, and that probably affects the number of full employees per 1,000 residents. Correct. It would even be greater if you consider now that Dauphin and York are getting out of or have gotten out of it. They no longer have nursing homes. So, to line up where we are with the number of employees per 1,000 residents is pretty good.
Yes. I concur. And on that point, I have not seen in Pennsylvania county nursing home as well. We all understand there's many challenges to it, keeping it in that state. But I haven't seen a better run financially by metrics, and I look at those again this year. I look at those periodically within the state. Typically they're doing very poorly, as they have been in other counties, even in this region. That's the reason why they're getting out of this. So credit to your office, credit to the finance office, involved in that.
Mike or Bill or Dana, I'm going to need your help here. Page 15, this is a question I asked earlier. The number of days reserved. I know when we get budget information from our finance department, that number 2017 was around 140 days. So I'm assuming you have different formulas or the way you come up with that number.
Do we take it?
Yeah, we do.
Did you have to bring all the stuff that I sent? Oh. If you go back to the FAC, this page, do you remember? You don't? But it's the breakout of the fund balance that we use on a budgeting basis. And basically how we do the fund balance on the financial side during budget is we have to do it based on budget. We don't have the history in our hands. So when we decided what fund balance to do, we did an analysis of what fund balance stays the steadiest in relationship to the cash balance. Because the major player in the fund balance is cash. And the major player of that is based on how we have the general fund in Lawson is the budgetary fund balance plus unassigned fund balance. And then when we determine that product to the board, we also research, and then there's a lot of other counties that are also using that same methodology for that purpose. So we're trying to develop what fund balance should be and project out into the future, and you don't have hindsight on your side when you're doing that. So that's why we use that fund balance. The fund balance that Mike is using in the CAFR is all in. It has restricted, it has things that aren't available, like prepaid. It has assigned, unassigned, it's all in. It also has everything that's in the CAFR. For example, Economic Development Corporation is in. Well, that's not part of how we manage the county, so it's not in our fund balance numbers. The library is in our numbers because it's a cash flow issue for us, because we're getting the revenues in, we have to pay it out. So there's a lot of different things that are in our numbers versus theirs. And so we define fund balance for budgetary purposes as general fund as defined in our Lawson software, and it's the unassigned plus assigned for budgetary. And then basically the biggest difference for the CAFR is theirs is based on financial reporting requirements, and it's all in. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
And I'm going to assume that the comparison then you did with the other counties was the same. So
Yes.
compare an apples with apples. Okay.
Anybody? Other question? Yeah, I gotta say, this is very easy to read, guys, it really is, and we appreciate your work on it. Anybody have any other questions?
We should have shared it.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, Mike and Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Alex.
Al.
Mike, thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is our one-year update for the electronic recycling center.
Commissioners, a year ago, July 11th, we opened our electronics recycling facility. Totally new endeavor for us, not sure where it was headed. I have to say, from my standpoint, Justin and his team did an excellent job launching this, and see from the numbers today, I think it was very successful. We have Sharon Dodd with us this morning, or this afternoon. She's one of our authority board members. She's been very instrumental in helping us out and guide us on staff levels. So welcome, Sharon. So I'll turn it over to Judd for all the good news.
Okay. We got a little PowerPoint here for you. I think you got a paper copy. Just go through this briefly. So here's year one summary. We did better than we had projected. last year we projected 300,000 pounds. You can see we did 457, 593. These revenues and our expenses came right out of Lawson's, how it's tracked in Lawson. And you can see, largely because we did better than we had projected, we did better financially than we had projected as well. Down at the bottom, we'd like you to take note, I did break out the expense costs into 4 categories there. I just wanted to highlight the staff costs do include part-time. There's also some full-time costs in there, largely for the facilities department for some work they did for us. And I anticipate them doing some more work for us next year. Transportation recycling costs was by far our largest cost to our contractor. Then operational costs and capital costs. I believe we had estimated like $50,000 for capital. I really wanted to make this program work. We had this huge turnout. Actually, I looked today before I came down. In the first 4 months, we collected the same amount of weight as we did in the following 8 months. So after month 4, we started to see a drop off, and then of course I'm starting to worry. Okay, we're done here. So I really tried to keep control on capital costs, and they weren't as large as we had anticipated. So for year 2 projection, I'm going to project 300,000 pounds again. We saw from July 17, I looked at July 17 and July 18, there was a 42% drop off in weight. Also, if you look at the first 6 months compared to the second 6 months, there was a 42% drop off in weight. If you take 42% off of that 457, it actually comes down to around like 265. Yeah. But I think 300 is a reasonable number. Revenue would correspond to that. Expenses I broke out again at the bottom. Part-time and also anticipating some more full-time costs from facilities. I have some projects I want to show you here later. Corresponding transportation recycling costs of the poundage. Operational costs I allowed for a slight increase, and capital I'm estimating 11.5. And you can see in that scenario in year 2, we would actually come up short a little over $1,700. Okay, what did we receive? This is actually what we sent to the recycler. You can see, Jim, you mentioned when we walked in, CRT TVs by far the largest. I think 62% percentage-wise. The LCD flat screens, that surprised me. I didn't think we'd see as many of those as we do, but we get a lot of those. And some of these other materials, desktop computers, still getting CRT monitors, and then the small items, didn't think we'd see as many of those as we have.
Question on that, Joe. On the TV, you were saying about seeing more of the flat panels than you expect. Are they non-working or?
I've heard both. A lot of times we'll ask the people, is it broke, and I've heard probably an even amount of it's broken, or I just wanted to go bigger and better.
Yeah. Because there's all that question still hanging out there. They're new enough that nobody really knows what the life expectancy is. So
I've heard, and I can't back up data, but being in this business, I've heard that generally they say they don't last as long as the CRT TVs. And we've seen, well, I think we had a CRT TV from like the 50s coming down one day. It was really interesting.
Is that hers?
Yes.
Well, my point of raising that too is if these things have less of a lifespan, we're going to see a continuous stream of them too.
Oh yeah, that's the next, and that's, the industry is arguing that eventually you're going to do away with the CRT TV, so that's true, but there's a whole new stream coming. This was just to show you, I mentioned that 42% reduction. I compared the first 6 months to the second 6 months. It happens to be 17 versus 18. You can see our average pounds per day has dropped off, but we're still at a sustainable level. It's kind of leveled out. As it dropped off, as I said, I was nervous it was going to continue to drop off and we were going to be done, but it's kind of leveled out. Participation, GIS produced this map. The colors, there's a legend down there, correspond to numbers of people that came. And you can see that most people come from closer to the area, but we are getting a good distribution. We're getting people from other counties. I did look at the zip codes in early August. 92% of the zip codes were from Cumberland County, 8% were out of county. Okay, every customer gets a receipt. At the bottom is an invitation to take an online survey. We have 6 questions. First question, is the staff courteous and helpful? 99% have said yes. I think there's 3 people who said no, and I'm going to tell you it's probably due to me. The first couple of weeks that we were open, it was pretty stressful down there. Are the hours of operation convenient? 91% said yes, so I'm happy with that number. Third question is 50 cents per pound a reasonable fee for a non-tax funded facility? And this number surprises me, over 75% have said yes. 98% understand what we take and don't take, and 91% of users were satisfied with their experience. So happy with those results. Okay. As I said, I really try to control costs in year 1. I do think we should look at some capital improvements if we're going to continue this program. Got a couple pictures I want to show you. First picture here, 2 things. The state does inspect our scale for accuracy, if anyone ever asked you. They were out just about 2 weeks ago, and we were dead on. However, what you'll notice here is our scale is exposed.
What's the state do
We don't trust John do it.
To avoid conflict of interest.
that? I see.
Judd takes John Bittner out to lunch a lot. I'm sure it's a good idea.
All right.
I'll show, we do have a tent we put up, easy up when it rains. But in the winter, when it snows, we have to get down and shovel the scale off. The big thing I learned in the spring with the winds come rolling across that property. And it's amazing the amount of pressure they put on that scale. It causes the scale to just go all over the place. I'd like to put up maybe like a 4-post lean-to that we could drop down canvas sides when it's windy out to protect us from the rain and the wind. This is the back wall inside the barn. I don't know if you can see right in here, these rocks are falling down, and if we bump against these, they fall down. I'd like to do some shoring up of the wall there, maybe even some metal support posts on the beams, just for safety reasons. Okay, I didn't know if I should put this in or not, but we have a bird problem down there. This first slide is actually a decaying bird with maggots. We came in the one day, we're not open every day, so we came in 3-4 days later, here's a dead bird, and you can see lots of bird droppings around it. This picture I put in, they go over our, not only this thing, but on the electronics. You grab it with your hands, you put your hands in it. I'd like to work with facilities to try to shore that up a little bit and control that so we don't have as much of a mess to deal with. The guys have been great, the 2 employees we have down there. They just roll right along and deal with it, but it's something I'd like to address.
Just any pigeons or?
Mostly pigeons, but that bird, that decaying bird, was actually a duck.
Duck.
And we find broken eggs in there, and I don't know if they're coming from that wet area down behind. This is probably my #1 priority. Right across here, there's a change in pavement. And if you look closely, and it's a rainy day here, see all these puddles. This pavement is very rough and uneven. Several times in backing out with the forklift, and I'm running the forklift here, you hit one of those divots, and here's what happens. Stuff falls over, and it's frustrating. We wasted all that wrap there. This day it was raining. You're out in the rain having to rewrap this stuff. I'd like to try to come up with a solution, maybe even extending this concrete up. Just once we hit this, it's smooth. Yesterday I ran the lift, helped the guys a little bit. Even after I put stuff in the trailer and come back in, going over that empty, oh my goodness, it just vibrates the heck out of you. And I don't think it's good for the lift. There's our tent, by the way, that we put up when it rains. We've destroyed 2 of those already. One due to wind and one due to trustees not knowing how to fold it down. So in conclusion, our year 1 weighted exceeded projections by 50%, resulting in that increased revenue. But as I mentioned to you, our demand has decreased in 2018 by about 42%, but we're still at a sustainable level. Using that existing facility and the trustee labor is critical to us keeping the fee at 50 cents a pound. We recommend some future facility improvements to promote a safer and a more friendly customer environment.
Get those grumpy guys out there.
Future demand and impacts of electronics recycling trends are unknown. Even the legislation, the law that, Senate Bill 800 that was introduced to try to solve all these issues with the current law, to me, I think it's going to die here in November. It's sat in the committee, hasn't even got out of committee. So I think this is going to be a need into the future here. And we'd like to evaluate the program and come back to you in February, mainly because our current contract ends at the end of April. There's a 90-day window, so we'll know at that period if they're interested in continuing as is, if they want to change something, or if they want to leave us.
They're still giving you positive feedback?
Yeah. I asked them if they're happy with us, and they said they are. It's been a good working relationship.
Do they have any other contracts in the state or in the region that you're doing?
Not that I'm aware of. Not in the region. I think they have some other ones in PA, but I'm not aware of any in this immediate region.
Okay. But you're not hearing anything about, well, this may be coming to an end or anything like that?
No, they were, I will say this, when we first started out, they were using a trucking company called Key Logistics. And they told me they quickly found out they were charging them more than they had quoted them. So they found another trucking company out of Rochester that makes a run down to York every week to Maple Donuts. So they've been able to piggyback with them to help control transportation costs. Even though they may not have other sites in the area, they're working with a trucking company that is traveling in this area, which is helping them.
So we're taking Maple Donuts on one leg and then...
Yeah, I like when they bring
electronics
us,
on the
yeah,
other.
they bring us an empty trailer for Maple Donuts, it smells good. But I think I'm pleased with the program. I think it's going smooth. In my opinion, it could have gone a lot worse.
Justin's being real humble. I mean, for a program like this, a business model we haven't been in before, to launch a program like this and have it be successful, he's done a heck of a job. I can't say that enough.
And it was priced just right. I mean, you hit the right number. And I think the only illegal drop-offs we had were very early on, right?
Early on. And everyone that did that was caught. And we learned from that. After the second time, every day when we close, I have a sidewalk sign I put up that says, "We are currently closed. Do not leave any items. Please see our hours."
So you've had no more incidents?
There's no more incidents.
The third bullet there with the trustee labor, by the way, I know, you may think that's a typo, but it is not. Trustee, we actually learned that. We learned that from Earl, actually, yeah. But I think that's really key. You know, when you go out there any given day, we have between 2 to 4 trustees helping us out. If they were part-time staff people, we'd have to pay for, the price would go up. And you know, those guys are paying their debt to society. I think overall they've done a great job for us. It seems like they're ready and willing to work. And we get a lot of positive responses too on the customer service aspect from those guys too. So a big thank you to them. Sometimes they're missed in the whole equation, but they've done good work for us.
Kirk and I did a presentation back in April for the PSATS conference. The lady we teamed with, she made a comment that in today's environment, 50 cents a pound is not bad. I think she told us with a facility in Erie, it's $1.90 a pound. Yeah, so.
Justin, I know this is a very small number, but I saw people or numbers from Carbon County, Schuylkill County, and you probably didn't know they were from that county, maybe the way afterwards, but
right.
By chance, did anybody say, I came all the way from here because
No, I have been there 2 times though. Gentleman said a zip. I was in the trailer. I didn't recognize it. I asked where it's from. It's from Chester Springs. And I said, well, I gotta ask.
That's Chester County.
I gotta ask, why are you coming here? He said, well, I've come to visit someone in the nursing home, and I saw your sign. I saw it as an opportunity. Now, the other one was a zip code from Hedgesville, West Virginia. And I said, why are you coming here? She said, well, I grew up in this area. I come back to visit my parents, and I didn't have any place to take this in West Virginia, so.
That makes sense.
Well, yeah, I want to commend you, Justin, and everybody who's been involved tonight, and it's worked out well. I still think, at some point in time, hopefully that we get some legislators elected who actually do something, and I mean that seriously. I mean, we have so many issues that are not being addressed. This is one of them that should have been fixed a long time ago, but in any event, I'm glad that this has worked out. I had asked, well, okay, we don't want to overcharge people, do the right thing, and but I can see from the numbers here that, we're not making a lot of money here, and you've got some capital improvements. So along those lines, I just wanted to ask, is the $26,000 that you made in the first year, is that then going to go towards some of these improvements? Is that what the intent is? Okay.
Go towards improvements, and I think the numbers continue to drop. They can support staying at the 50 cents.
Yeah, okay. The other thing I was thinking of too is if you continue to see a drop off. I noticed in the chart here that it seems like the Saturday is something that a lot of people appreciate having that available on Saturday. But would there possibly be, maybe you eliminate one of the days perhaps, or maybe change the hours on one of the days?
We could consider, we did change the hours back in the fall, and then what was interesting, I analyzed the data. We started out 2 to 6. We went 12 to 4. We were doing more weight between 12 and 2 than between 4 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed at 12 to 4. Now, the days themselves, I kept the way they are. Our one part-timer works a full-time job elsewhere.
Okay.
So he has to be, every Saturday, he leaves us and goes to a full-time job. So for the time being, not getting a lot of complaints and seeing that, 91% was happy with the days and hours.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I was just thinking if we see
It's a good
drop off, maybe one of the ways to not have to face increasing the fee would be to eliminate one of the days.
It's a good point. I do like Saturdays they're the busiest. It's also the most strenuous of the 3 days. I think those weekdays help control the busyness of the Saturday.
Okay.
This way to give people a choice. Some people will say, well, I know Saturday's going to be crazy, so I'm going to come in. Right. Just convenient for them.
Matter of fact, some of our calls about the facility, they ask us, is there a better day to come than others? A lot of times they'll say Tuesday and Wednesday is not as busy. Oh, I'm going to come then.
Yeah, the convenience factor is big.
Good job.
Yeah, it's been great. Indeed, hasn't it?
It still exists apparently, so it's nice to keep this rolling. I think you guys did a great job. Made it look easy, but I can tell you there's a lot of details involved, and it was not easy. I think these guys heard me report out that one of the classes I'm taking, we actually profiled the start of this, and it really gave me, I think, a great appreciation for how much work went into it, how well thought out it was. So thank you for your help on the project too. So I got an A.
You got an A. And I can tell you guys, I don't think we have received one complaint here at the commission.
Well, online some people complained about us rapping the folks who don't. I don't consider those complaints to be valid.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah. And I just want to concur with the commissioner, but I also want to commend you on the reporting. You've gone through a year, you've reported, you've had understandable metrics. I appreciate that initially the business model was not known. But also too, you pointed to that another measure, another milestone in the February of 2019.
I think that's important to Steve too, because, year one, as Judd said, was all this pent-up demand. So that year two, I think, will be our telling case to see what kind of the standard look at this and the standard volume that we'll see. So year two will be interesting to see when we're back here next year, present to you guys again.